Welcome to the Special Forces in World War II podcast, transmitting on this frequency. This broadcast is your dedicated channel for comprehensive intelligence regarding World War II Special Forces operations. Our transmissions encompass in-depth analysis of their strategic maneuvers, cutting-edge equipment, illustrious biographies, and an array of pertinent subjects. The orchestration of these transmissions is executed by the expert team of the Special Forces in World War II website, a squad deeply immersed in the historical theatre. For further insights, visual aids, and captured moments frozen in time, navigate to our virtual headquarters at worldwar2-soft.com. Your immersion into the front lines of knowledge awaits. Over and out. Welcome back to another episode of the Special Forces in World War II podcast, where we explore the bold, the daring, and the extraordinary tactics of special and specialized forces in World War II that helped shape the outcome of the greatest conflict in modern history. I'm your host, Michael Wires, and as always, we're here to unravel the hidden stories behind the daring exploits of special and specialized forces in World War II. Today, we continue our 5-part series on the Provisional Ranger Force during D-Day. Back in our first episode, we examined the Rangers' road to Normandy. From their arrival in Britain to relentless commando-led training, shifting leadership, and rehearsals on the Devon coast, we saw how Force A, B, and C took shape. Equipment was tested, cliff scaling methods refined, and by early June, the men were fully prepared. Kit stripped to essentials, rockets, ladders, and swan ducks loaded, ready for a pre-dawn launch toward the cliffs of France. In the second episode, we traced the dramatic opening of the assault on Pointe du Hoc, from the heavy air raids of June 5th and 6th to the storm-tossed approach and the late landings. We followed Colonel Rudder's men as they climbed the shattered cliffs under fire. On the plateau, they pushed inland, secured the coastal highway, and in a decisive moment, found and destroyed the hidden German 155mm guns. Against all odds, the Rangers achieved their primary mission. In our last episode, we continued the story of the 2nd Ranger Battalion at Pointe du Hoc after the destruction of the hidden 155mm guns. Scattered Ranger groups fought to hold both the point and the coastal highway under constant pressure. Communications failed, naval gunfire proved both vital and hazardous, and German snipers, mortars, and counterattacks kept the small force pinned down. We followed the actions of Wince, Masny, Belcher, Flanagan, and others as they cleared trenches and strongpoints at heavy cost. Inland, a thin Ranger line repelled 2 assaults on June 6th, only to be broken by fierce night attacks that forced a withdrawal. Medics improvised evacuations under fire, while seriously wounded men remained at the cliff base overnight. The first relief finally arrived late on June 7th, 1944, when a patrol from the 5th Rangers linked Colonel Rudder to the main force. On June 8th, 1944, elements of the 116th Regimental Combat Team and Ranger Force B and C reached Pointe du Hoc, though not before a tragic friendly fire incident. By then, fewer than 75 Rangers remained combat effective out of the 225 who had landed, their casualties exceeding 70%. This episode will cover the actions of Ranger Force B and their task to break open the western end of Omaha Beach, destroy Widerstandsnest 73 at Vierville, clear Widerstandsnest 74 at Pointe de la Percée, join Ranger Force C, and fight their way to Pointe du Hoc. But let's start at the beginning. Ranger Force B is composed of Company C of the 2nd Ranger Battalion. The company is assigned a distinct and independent mission on D-Day. Unlike the main Ranger body ordered to storm Pointe du Hoc, Company C is designated to land on the extreme western end of Omaha Beach in Charlie Sector. Their scheduled touchdown is H+3 minutes, just behind the first assault wave of the 116th Regimental Combat Team. Their first task is the destruction of Widerstandsnest 73, the dominant German strongpoint covering the western end of Dog Green and Charlie Beaches. Its guns and mortars threaten every unit landing in this sector. Neutralizing it is essential for securing the Vierville exit. Widerstandsnest 73 is the westernmost of 13 strongpoints defending the Vierville bluffs and valleys. Each Widerstandsnest, or resistance nest, controls a section of the coast. Together, they form an interlocking web of fire, designed to cover every approach to the beaches and inland routes. WN-73 is ideally positioned. Sitting on the cliff edge above Dog Sector, it commands clear fields of fire across the western half of Omaha Beach. From this height, the garrison can sweep the shingle, the tidal flats, and the waterline with both frontal and flanking fire. Any landing force at the base of the cliffs would be caught in the open. By April and May 1944, responsibility for this sector has passed to the German 352 Infantry Division, though older static troops of 3 Battalion, Infantry Regiment 726 remain in place. In the Vierville area, Widerstandsnest 70 through 73 are manned by 11th Company, Grenadier Regiment 726. Their mission is simple but brutal. Deny access to the Dog 1 draw and prevent any breakout from the beach. The defenses are arranged with precision. Crossfires from rifles, machine guns, mortars, anti-tank guns, and artillery cover every approach. The system is medieval in concept, layered, mutually supporting, and deadly. To attack one position is to draw fire from the next. Without silencing Widerstandsnest 73, any frontal assault risks catastrophic losses. The strongpoint itself includes multiple machine gun posts, 3 81mm mortars, and at least one 75mm artillery piece. Shelters are dug deep into the bluff. Minefields and heavy barbed wire guard the landward side. At its center stands a solid stone house, built into a cleft of the cliff, the so-called Fortified House. Its fields of fire are limited, but it serves as command post and billet. On D-Day, it becomes a rallying point of resistance. For the Allies, Widerstandsnest 73 must be destroyed. Only then can the Vierville draw be opened and movement inland secured. Once Widerstandsnest 73 is neutralized, Company C is to advance west along the cliffs. Their next target is Pointe de la Percée and Widerstandsnest 74. Though smaller and more isolated, this position must be cleared to secure the flank. Widerstandsnest 74 sits on elevated ground above a sheer drop to the sea. It is the westernmost element of the Omaha Beach defenses, guarding the coastal track between Vierville and Pointe du Hoc. Its role is to serve as a flank anchor, an observation post, and a local strongpoint. Though lighter than the defenses at Vierville, Widerstandsnest 74 is still formidable. Its known or probable weapons include 2 Czech Škoda 7.65cm field guns, 4 20mm flak 30s, MG 34s, and MG 42s, plus extensive barbed wire, S-mines, and anti-personnel minefields. The garrison is estimated at 25 to 35 men, believed to be from 9 Company, Grenadier Regiment 726 of the 716 Infantry Division, though under operational control of the 355. Infantry Division. These are bodenständig troops, older men or those with limited mobility, assigned to hold fixed defenses to the last. Close by is a radar station, either Würzburg-Riese or Freya type, controlled by the Luftwaffe. It may be manned by elements of 10. Flugmelder Light Company, Luftnachrichten Regiment 53, with possible Kriegsmarine signals personnel present if the site is operational. After clearing Widerstandsnest 74, Company C is ordered to push further west, rejoining the 2nd Ranger Battalion at Pointe du Hoc and destroying any enemy positions encountered en route. For the initial mission, 1 amphibious tank platoon is assigned in support, 2 if required. Flank protection is to be provided by Company C of the 116th Regimental Combat Team. On the morning of June 6, 1944, Company C of the 2nd Ranger Battalion faces one of the most dangerous assignments of the Normandy landings: break open the western end of Omaha Beach, destroy Widerstandsnest 73 at Vierville, clear Widerstandsnest 74 at Pointe de la Percée, and then fight their way west to Pointe du Hoc. Company C of the 2nd Ranger Battalion numbers 3 officers and 65 men. They are embarked in 3 British crewed landing craft on the extreme left flank of the assault flotilla. Their landing is scheduled for 6:38. That is 8 minutes after the Sherman duplex drive tanks of B Company, 743rd Tank Battalion, due at H-5 minutes, and 3 minutes after Company A of the 116th Regimental Combat Team, timed for H-hour. The sequence is deliberate. The tanks are expected to engage the strong points. The infantry is to push inland through the beach exits. The Rangers are to follow, then advance west to attack the positions at Vierville and Pointe de la Percée. At 4:30, the Rangers lower away from their transport and move to the rendezvous area. They make contact with Company A of the 116th Regimental Combat Team. The seas are heavy, and many Rangers are seasick during the run-in. One of the landing craft is then struck by German anti-tank fire. The ramp is smashed, casualties are severe, and men are thrown into the water. Burdened by their equipment, some drown before they can be rescued. Others are pulled from the sea by Coast Guard vessels and evacuated to safety, unable to continue the mission. The 2 remaining landing craft continue towards the beach. The seas are still rough. Captain Ralph Goranson has the men rotate positions in the boat to reduce seasickness. During the approach, Ranger Edwin Sorvisto notices the air bombardment on Pointe du Hoc. He remembers the bombs striking to the right, throwing a reddish-orange glow into the sky. Shortly before sunrise, the destroyer USS Thompson opens fire. At 5:50, its 4 127mm guns bombard Target 74, the German strongpoint identified as Widerstandsnest 74 at Pointe de la Percée. After half an hour, the guns shift to Target 75, Widerstandsnest 73, near the Rangers' landing sector. As the landing craft continue shoreward, they pass a sinking craft from the 1st Battalion, 116th Regimental Combat Team. It had carried the Beachmaster and part of the command group from HMS Princess Maud. Swamped by the seas, it founders off Dog Green Beach. Its occupants do not reach shore until 7:20. It is clear by then that Company A of the 116th is suffering heavy losses at the Vierville draw. Captain Goranson and the Royal Navy coxswains decide to use the alternate landing plan. Instead of heading directly into Dog Green, they turn west towards the boundary of Dog Green and Charlie sectors, aiming to land on the flank of the embattled 1st Battalion, 116th Regimental Combat Team. The delay means the Rangers land at 6:45, about H+15, instead of the planned H+3. At 6:35, the destroyer Thompson sights the Ranger craft approaching. At 6:46, Lieutenant Commander Albert Gebelin orders his gunners to cease fire. Smoke and dust obscure the shoreline, making further bombardment unsafe as the craft close in. Until the Rangers are almost at the beach, the Germans appear unaware of their approach. At about 180 meters out, everything is still quiet. The 2 craft touch down just west of the shattered A Company. They land close together, within 115 meters of each other, beyond the western limit of the Vierville draw. Here, the belts of mines and obstacles begin to thin out. Nearby, stands Widerstandsnest 73. Two mortars inside the strongpoint had been pre-registered on the shoreline and were already used with devastating effect against Company A. A few rounds fall near the Rangers as they land, but none hit directly. Farther west lies Pointe de la Percée and Widerstandsnest 74, the final objective of Ranger Force B. The 1st Platoon, aboard Landing Craft Assault 418, comes under direct fire as it approaches the beach. Within moments of grounding, 4 76.5mm shells hit the craft. The first shot misses, the second tears away the bow ramp. The third slams into the stern. The fourth explodes amidships. Around a dozen Rangers are killed instantly. Captain Goranson and 4 nearby men are stunned and concussed, but despite their injuries, they escape the wreck with the remaining survivors. To the left, the 2nd Platoon, under Lieutenant Sidney Salomon, lands in Landing Craft Assault 1038. The craft grounds on a sandbar, forcing the men to disembark into waist-deep water. Before the ramp is even lowered, German machine gunners on the cliffs open fire. Salomon is the first out, followed by Sergeant Oliver Reed. Reed is hit and collapses beneath the ramp. Salomon pulls him clear and drags him onto the beach. As the platoon pushes inland, a mortar round strikes their group. It kills the head of the mortar section and wounds most of the others. Salomon himself is hit in the back by shrapnel. At the cliff base, the medic removes the larger fragments and applies field dressings. Salomon later estimates that half the men from his craft, about 15, are killed or wounded almost immediately. Some of the wounded try to crawl forward, but German fire cuts them down. Of the 23 Rangers of C Company killed on D-Day, 19 fall in these opening minutes. The 2 surviving landing craft touch down roughly 230 to 275 meters from the cliff base. The tide has carved deep runnels across the shoreline, forcing the men to wade through them under fire. Progress is slowed, but they keep moving until they reach the foot of the cliffs. Their training dictates that they must run straight for cover without stopping to regroup. The Rangers carry only half the standard infantry load, much lighter than the men of the 116th Regimental Combat Team, giving them greater speed and agility under fire. Technician 5th grade Jesse Runyon, a Browning automatic rifle gunner, is hit in the groin and loses the use of his legs. Even so, he continues firing on a German machine gun nest covering the Vierville draw. His suppressing fire reduces casualties among the others as they cross. The dash across the beach is chaotic and deadly. Men fall under machine gun and mortar fire, but no one stops to help. Training is clear. The mission comes first, and the only chance of survival is to reach the cliffs with weapons and knowledge intact. The run takes 3 to 4 minutes. By the time they reach cover, 35 of the original 64 Rangers are dead or wounded. Charlie Company loses both its mortars. Only 1 bazooka remains serviceable. 3 of the 4 bar gunners survive to the cliff base. Squad leader casualties are heavy. Captain Goranson's personal equipment is later found riddled with bullet and shrapnel holes. His rations are destroyed. His canteen and flare projector are pierced. His morphine kit is shredded. Yet he himself is unhurt. The toll is severe. 19 Rangers are dead. 13 are badly wounded. 5 more are lightly wounded but choose to stay in action. 30 Rangers survive the crossing. They are scattered along 180 meters of cliff base, the largest group no more than 8 men. Lieutenant Salomon places his BAR gunners to fire towards the Vierville draw. Their covering fire suppresses German positions and allows 5 wounded Rangers to crawl to safety. The cliffs give the Rangers cover. German infantry on the bluff cannot fire directly down at them. Mortars are ineffective at such close range and remain fixed on a company of the 116th Infantry. Grenades are thrown over the edge, but the defenders cannot see where they land. Most roll harmlessly down the slope or bury themselves in the sand. One grenade lands close to Captain Goranson. Its fuse burns out, but the sand absorbs the blast. The Rangers quickly realize that the grenades are ineffective. At worst, they cause only superficial wounds. Wounded men are carried into a shallow depression at the cliff base. Goranson and Lieutenant Moody agree that Plan 1, advancing through the Vierville draw, is impossible. The 116th has taken crippling losses. They switch to Plan 2, climbing the cliffs. Lieutenant Moody, with Sergeant Julius Belcher and Private Otto Stevens, begins searching for a route up. The lower 12 to 15 meters are vertical, but the slope above is less steep. Stevens spots a section 320 meters west that looks climbable. Using a bayonet to cut handholds, he climbs. Belcher follows. Then Moody ascends with toggle ropes. At the top, they find stakes driven into the ground near a marked minefield. The ropes are fixed in place. Rifle fire comes from German trenches near the Fortified House. The Fortified House, known locally as the Folie Gambier, sits in a gully halfway up the cliff, part of the hamlet of Vignotière. Above it to the east stands a stone barn. Together they form the heart of Widerstandsnest 73, alongside a wooden barracks and a field kitchen. By 7 o'clock, the ropes are ready. Moody signals below, and 24 Rangers start to climb. The ascent takes half an hour. At the top, Moody's party scouts the area. Widerstandsnest 74 is visible more than 900 meter west, but with so few men, advancing is judged too risky. The Rangers decide to clear the fortified house first. Naval fire from USS McCook has already damaged the villa. Patrols report it is partly collapsed. Lieutenant Salomon arrives at the plateau with 9 survivors from his craft. 7 are lightly wounded. Minutes later, the destroyer USS Harding begins shelling the area, unaware that Rangers have reached the top. A fluorescent panel is laid out. The fire stops. 2 soldiers from A Company of the 116th, Privates Schiefer and Lovejoy, join the climb. By 7:30, all of the surviving Rangers are on the crest. Below, B Company of the 116th is beginning to land. Captain Goranson spots one landing craft coming in under fire with Lieutenant Leo Pingenot and Staff Sergeant Odell Paget. 1 man is killed, 3 are wounded. Goranson sends a guide to the ropes. 28 more infantrymen climb up and reinforce the Rangers. Their arrival doubles Force B's strength. The infantry occupy trenches around the villa. A .30 caliber Browning machine gun is set up to cover the southern approach. Reconnaissance patrols soon report enemy troops still holding a fortified house and entrenchments to the west. This position, already pounded for 45 minutes by naval gunfire, is damaged but not destroyed. German troops have reoccupied it. Goranson decides to clear it. His immediate aim is to silence anything still firing onto Dog Beach before turning west towards Pointe de la Percée. The Rangers advance. Near the fortified house, they find a network of dugouts, trenches, machine guns, and a mortar to Brook. Goranson places men in an abandoned trench on the western side and begins probing the defenses. Lieutenant Moody leads a patrol up the slope. They clash with a German patrol. 2 are killed with BAR fire. The rest retreat. Moments later, Moody is killed when he raises his head above a crater. Private Stevens suffers a grazing head wound. Another patrol is struck by grenades near the barn. Most explode too early and are thrown back. Sergeant Belcher rushes a trench and collides with a German rifleman. Both fire, both weapons misfire. The German runs towards the mortar position. Belcher is known for his aggression. Officers describe him as fierce and relentless, a man who clears bunkers with grenades and point-blank fire. During the Normandy campaign, he will often raid trenches at night, returning with destruction behind him and laughter in his voice. Joined by another Ranger, Belcher storms a trench near the Tobruk. 3 Germans are shot. A white phosphorus grenade is thrown into a dugout. 2 more men flee and are cut down. When he realizes the trench system is too extensive to clear alone, Belcher pulls back. Göransson organizes 2 larger patrols to finish the job. Lieutenant Salomon takes one of these patrols, following Moody's earlier path. Sergeant Charles Flanagan fires a rifle grenade at a machine gun nest, killing the gunner. The blast wrecks his rifle, so he takes an MP-40 from a dead officer. Deeper in the trench, he encounters 4 Germans, kills 2, and forces the rest to withdraw. Approaching the Tobruk, the Rangers hurl another white phosphorus grenade. A burning man stumbles out. He is a Polish conscript. He surrenders and warns of a stockpile of mortar rounds inside. To avoid detonation, the position is left to be cleared later. Meanwhile, Belcher pushes forward again, using communication trenches near the cliff. But Widerstandsnest 73 proves too large to clear in one push. German troops continue filtering through the system into the afternoon. A stalemate develops. Only 2 Rangers are wounded in this phase. When the trenches are finally secured, burial details count 69 German dead in and around Widerstandsnest 73. At 7:16, the destroyer USS Thompson identifies one of the 76.5mm guns at Widerstandsnest 74. Her 127mm guns open fire. The bombardment continues until 7:55. In that time, Thompson fires 106 rounds. Only one of the 2 guns is put out of action. Thompson remains off Dog Green Beach through the morning and into the early afternoon, targeting bunkers and defensive positions inside the Vierville draw. Naval support in this sector, however, is inconsistent. No shore fire control party makes contact with the destroyers during the morning. Without proper coordination, several incidents of friendly fire occur. One involves Major Thomas Dallas and the command group of the 1st Battalion, 116th Infantry. They set up a small headquarters in a gully west of the Vierville draw. USS McCook, mistaking the group for German troops, begins shelling the gully. Dallas throws an orange smoke grenade to signal their position as friendly, but the destroyer interprets the signal as hostile and increases its fire. Later that afternoon, at about 4:35 p.m., McCook once again targets the Dallas group. As they move, the ship mistakes them for German troops a second time. Dallas's men wave white flags and attempt semaphore signaling. This is misread as a German surrender attempt, and the shelling continues. By early afternoon, Captain Göransson leads a small group of Rangers west along the bluffs to observe Widerstandsnest 74, the second objective assigned to Force B. At about 1400, a destroyer closes in and shells the position again. Staff Sergeant Elijah Dykus takes out a patrol to investigate. They report that the strong point appears destroyed and abandoned. With confirmation from the patrol, Göransson decides to call off any further assault on Widerstandsnest 74. Records also show that USS Karmic engaged German cliff positions during the day, though no exact times are given. Around 1600, a Ranger climbs up from the beach and reports contact with Major Thomas Dallas's command group below. They have a functioning radio. Göransson immediately sends a runner asking Dallas to reach other Ranger elements, but technical problems prevent communication. Another runner is sent to Vierville-sur-Mer to locate Lieutenant Colonel John Metcalf of the 1st Battalion, 116th Infantry. He cannot be found. Throughout the day, Göransson's Force B remains cut off from the main 116th Infantry Force. The SCR-300 radios brought ashore are either waterlogged or lost in the landing. No contact is possible. In the afternoon, Göransson sends a patrol inland toward Vierville. They encounter a firefight between American and German troops. Outnumbered, they turn back to the bluffs. In the evening, USS Thompson returns to the Pointe du Hoc sector. At 1836, she re-engages Widerstandsnest 74. 12 minutes later, her last salvo collapses the gun aperture. At 1900 hours, Göransson himself climbs down to the beach and meets Major Dallas at the cliff base. By this point, Dallas has finally managed to establish radio contact with the 116th Infantry. He relays their position. Lieutenant Colonel Metcalf, through Dallas, instructs that the Rangers are to move to the hamlet of Gruchy, southeast of the Grenier Villa. Company C makes its way down to the beach exit. Here they encounter a patrol from Force C. After receiving instructions, they continue on to Lieutenant Colonel Max Schneider's Force C bivouac. Company C reaches Schneider's position at 2200 hours. By nightfall, Ranger Force B is a fraction of its original strength. Fewer than 20 men remain from the 64 who had set out that morning. 21 Rangers are confirmed killed. 18 are seriously wounded. The officer and non-commissioned officer losses are especially severe. Of the 3 officers and 24 non-commissioned officers in the company, 2 officers and 17 non-commissioned officers become casualties during the day's fighting and the actions that follow. Some of the walking wounded refuse evacuation. They stay with Captain Göransson and rejoin the survivors at Gruchy. In the following days, C Company, 2nd Rangers Battalion, helps Force C, under Lieutenant Colonel Max Schneider, to relieve the men of Ranger Force A under Lieutenant Colonel James E. Rudder at Pointe du Hoc. And that concludes today's episode. Today, we followed Ranger Force B of the 2nd Ranger Battalion on D-Day. We saw how Captain Ralph Göransson's small company set out to break open the western end of Omaha Beach. Their first objective was the powerful German strongpoint Widerstandsnest 73 at Vierville, a position dominating Dog Green and Charlie sectors. We tracked their hazardous run-in from the transport area through rough seas and enemy fire. One landing craft was destroyed before reaching shore, and heavy casualties followed as the surviving craft touched down under machine gun and mortar fire. Despite losing more than half their strength crossing the open beach, the Rangers reached the base of the cliffs, climbed under fire, and began clearing the formidable trench and bunker system of WN-73. Naval gunfire both helped and at times endangered them. But by midday, the position was largely silenced. Through the afternoon, the battered survivors probed west toward Pointe de la Percée and Widerstandsnest 74, confirmed it destroyed, and finally linked up that night with Ranger Force C at Gruchy. Of the 64 men who began the mission, fewer than 20 were still combat-ready by nightfall. Yet their actions opened the flank, helped secure the Vierville exit, and set the stage for the Rangers' eventual relief of Force A at Pointe du Hoc. In our next and last episode about the Provisional Ranger at D-Day, we follow the actions of Ranger Force C as they land on Omaha Beach, lead the way of the beach, try to make it to Pointe du Hoc, and push on to hook with Utah Beach forces. This was the story of Force B, landing at the western edge of Omaha Beach at Pointe de la Percée, and their desperate fight to secure the flanks of the invasion. In Episode 5, the final part of this series, on the Provisional Ranger Group during the D-Day landings, we follow Ranger Force C under Major Max Schneider. The force lands on Omaha Beach and pushes forward along the bluffs. German strongpoints are cleared one by one as the Rangers fight their way east. Their mission is urgent: to reach and relieve Force A at Pointe du Hoc. From there, the surviving elements of the Provisional Ranger Group continue their advance towards the Maisie gun batteries and the approaches to Utah Beach. To explore more, including photographs, maps, original documents, and the full list of sources behind this series, visit www.worldwar2-sof.com. Again, among the most valuable works we drew on the cover-up at Omaha Beach, the Maisie Battery, and the U.S. Rangers by historian Gary Stern. D-Day cover-up at Pointe du Hoc. the history of the 2nd and 5th U.S. Army Rangers, 1st May to 10th June 1944, also researched and written by Stern. We also relied on smashing Hitler's guns, the Rangers at Pointe du Hoc, D-Day 1944, by military historian Stephen J. Zaloga. Together, these works provide both the broad picture and the fine detail behind the Rangers' role in Normandy. They, along with many other sources, have guided our research for this episode. These stories remind us that the fate of entire campaigns often rested on the shoulders of small elite units, those who led from the front, striking hard and holding fast in the face of overwhelming odds. Thank you for listening to the Special Forces in World War II podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider subscribing and leaving a review. Your support helps us continue to bring you more stories of courage, daring, and the unsung heroes of World War II. Be sure to tune in next time as we dive into yet another remarkable operation that helped shape the outcome of the war. Until then, keep your wits sharp, your courage steady, and remember, sometimes the most incredible victories come from the unlikeliest of places. See you in the next episode. I'm your host, Michael Wires, signing off. And that concludes this mission briefing, fellow warriors of knowledge. We've navigated through the trenches of information, delving deep into the battlefields of history. As we wrap up this episode in our campaign for understanding, remember that knowledge is your most potent weapon. Stay vigilant and keep sharpening your intellectual arsenal. We'll rendezvous again for another episode, continuing our relentless pursuit of enlightenment. Until then, keep your mind sharp, your curiosity burning, and your determination unwavering. Simultaneously, you are hereby alerted to our outposts on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, fortifying our information dissemination. Should you possess any pertinent intelligence to bolster our mission, transmit your findings with no hesitation. Your contributions shall be prominently acknowledged within the operational archives. Furthermore, for those prepared to provide substantial reinforcement, navigate to our Patreon forward base and enlist. Your support is integral to sustaining our forward thrust. Carry forth the legacy. Dismissed.